Setting up a display campaign the right way in Google Ads is the essential element to make sure that you're not wasting any of your precious budget with poor performing Google Ads display campaigns. And the biggest issue that I see time and time again with Google Ads display campaigns is that they set up as just an afterthought, with no real strategy or thought put into how you want to structure your Google Ads display campaign. For success with Google Ads display campaigns, you need to remember how they actually work and how they are displayed to your potential clients. Because unlike Google search campaigns, your ads are not triggered when someone completes a specific keyword search term. This means that when someone actually sees your Google display ad, the chances is that they are not currently in the exact buying mode or decision process to decide whether they want your product or your service. And when they actually see your ad, they could be looking at the latest news, or they could be trying to find that perfect gift for that special someone in their life. So with this in mind, to use Google Ads display campaigns in the right way so that your business actually gets extra results, you should only be using Google display campaigns once you've had a successful search campaign running for at least 30 days. And the second thing is that you should actually have separate ad groups within your Google display campaign that are used to target different audience groupings. If we haven't met yet, my name is Aaron Young and I'm your 15,000 hour Google Ads master. And in this video, I'm going to share with you my successful Google Ads display campaign strategy that I've been using for large and small campaigns for businesses like these, where they've been seeing profitable results with their Google Ads display campaigns. So if you want to learn more successful Google Ads strategies that will actually help your business generate more money online, why don't you give me a quick subscribe? Thank you very much. Let's firstly talk about why you should only start a Google Ads display campaign after you have had a successful Google Ads search campaign running for at least 30 days. And it quite simply comes down to audiences and giving Google Ads enough time to be able to auto-create some audiences in your Google Ads account, like Google Ads optimized lists, similar to all users and similar to all converters. And let's take a look at two examples to show you what I mean. And for both of these examples, we are actually in the Audience Manager, which if you want to check for your own account, you can go into Tools and Settings, and then under Shared Library, go into your Audience Manager. Now this first example is of a campaign that has only been running for 14 days. And you can actually see through here, the AdWords optimized list is still too small to serve because it has under 1,000 users. And the same with the all visitors. This is also too small to serve because it is under that benchmark of 1,000. Now, a lot of you would understand what the all users is, and this is a remarketing list, and this is purely retargeting and remarketing to people who have been on your website before. Whereas this AdWords optimized list is a combined audience based on available data sources. And as you can see here, this is just a segment into the combination of lists which is automatically created and managed by Google, and it creates different data points, so coming from your website, your app users, and other type of users. So essentially, it's Google putting a profile together of people that they think will have a high level of converting. Now let's go over to the second account right now. And this is an account history which has a much longer history. And you can see through here, this AdWords optimized list has been built out to over 100,000 people. They've also got some lists around all converters and all visitors. And if we take a further look down, you can actually see that Google has already gone through and created these similar lists, which is looking at the similar to all converters and similar to all users and similar to all visitors. And as the name suggests, this isn't people who have converted on your website yet or have even been to your website. This is a pool of people which Google has put together, and they have very similar search histories, age and demographics to people who have either been on your website or converted previously. So before you even look to start and launch your first Google Ads display campaign, go through and check your Audience Manager to make sure that you've already got those automatic audiences generated by Google in and around your similar to all converters and similar to all users, and also your Google Ads optimized list. And then once you have those audiences in your Google Ads account, you can then go through to the next point before you start your Google Ads display campaign, and that is that you actually want to put together the correct structure and strategy for your Google Ads display campaign. Now, if you've watched any videos on this channel, you know that a big theme of mine is that I'm all about having campaigns which have different ad groups which are targeting individual keyword themes. And this is no different for display campaigns. Now with display campaigns, you're not specifically targeting keywords, we're more about targeting different audiences and demographics. So with my display campaigns, I will generally have 3 different ad groups. And right now, let me show you how you should structure your Google Ads display campaign. So this is the campaign structure that you should be using for your Google Ads campaign. Now this first ad group down here is your affinity targeting audiences. And in this ad group with this affinity targeting, we're targeting people who haven't been on your website before, but Google has grouped them into an audience which would be interested in your product or service. So for example, if you're selling a health and fitness product, Google already has some set audiences for health and fitness products. Also, they've got other audiences called fitness buffs. They've also got audiences in regards to running, weightlifting, workouts, fitness classes. So what you can do is when you go through and set up this ad group is add targeting in and around those Google audiences, which is similar to your product or your service that you're offering. And now this second ad group is what we're going to be setting up as our remarketing audiences. And these are people who have actually been on your website before, but they haven't gone through and completed that conversion action. So we're wanting to re-show our ads and re-show our marketing and our messages so that we can hopefully get them to convert. And then finally, we've got our similar audiences. And these are those audiences which we were talking about before, where Google goes through and creates audiences similar to the people who have visited our website and similar to people who have converted on our website. And the way that Google does this is by matching people with similar search histories, audience profiles, and demographic groupings to people who have been on your website or converted on your website previously. There are two core reasons for why this Google Ads display campaign structure is so important. And the first one is that by grouping those audiences into separate ad groups, you can very quickly see which groupings of audiences are successful and profitable and which ones are just wasting your money. So for example, if you see that your remarketing and your similar audiences are being highly profitable, you can keep them running. Whereas if you see that the affinity marketing is not being so profitable, you can pause that ad group and focus more budget on the two successful ad groups. And then the second reason is that by separating those audiences into different ad groups, you can then tailor the messages so that each individual ad group is seeing different messages depending on their audience list and how well they know your product. So for example, for your remarketing ad group, because you know these ads are only going to be seen by people who have previously been on your website, you can add some different messaging in and around "don't miss out now" or "it's not too late to complete your purchase." Whereas for your similar and your affinity targeting audiences, because you're dealing with people who have shown interest in your type of products, but they may not know your website or your particular brand, you may want to tailor your ad copy so that you can focus on messaging in and around any of your unique selling points or your points of difference between your products and your competitors' products. So by adding in some differences between your different ad groups so that you don't just have one ad group where you're targeting all different audiences, you can actually then break up your messaging to make sure that you've got specific messaging going to specific audiences. Okay, so now that we have gone through the campaign structure that you should be using for your Google Ads display campaigns, I want to now take you through the step-by-step process and how you go about actually setting up a display campaign in Google Ads. Now, we are going to be running through this quite quickly, but if you do miss a step, please don't worry, because if you stick around to the end of this video, I'll actually give you a link so that you can go through and download my Google Ads display campaign setup guide, which not only shows you the structure that you need to use for your Google Ads display campaign, it actually includes screenshots and instructions for how you go through each individual step to set up your very own Google Ads display campaign. So let's get into that screen share right now. To set up your Google Ads display campaign, when you're in Google Ads, you firstly want to click on this big blue button, which is New Campaign. And from there, you'll have this option of choosing your objective, which would be sales or leads. Now, if you're running an e-commerce campaign that you're selling products online, I would use this sales option. Or if you're a service-based business and you're looking for more leads and inquiries, I would actually be going through and selecting this leads option. And then once you've clicked on your preferred option, it'll bring you down to this conversion section. Now, if you've got your conversions already set up, it will add them into here. Now, if you don't have any conversions set up, you can go through and add some goals. I'm not going to be going through that setup in this video, but what I will do at the end of this video is that I will actually share a link with you of how you can go through and set up your very own conversion actions in Google Ads. I'm happy with those conversion actions that we are targeting, but if you did want to remove one of these conversion actions for this campaign targeting, you can click on these three buttons and remove one of the goals. Now, I do need to confirm is that doesn't actually remove the Google Ads conversion from your whole account. It just removes it from this individual campaign. So Google will not be taking that individual conversion action into account when setting up your campaign. Once you're happy with that, you then press continue. And then this brings up the option for which campaign we want to select. And obviously in this case, we want to select the display campaign. Once we've selected display, it'll then bring up two options that we can use: a standard display campaign or a smart display campaign. Now we want to use the standard display campaign because that's the one that allows us to have those individual ad groups so that we can target those individual audiences to tailor our messages. And then from there, we want to go through and add in our business website, which I've gone through and entered in here. And then we want to go through and add in our campaign name. And with our campaign name, I would enter in something which makes sense for you. So for us, we're going to type in My Villas, and then in brackets, we're actually going to put that this is a display campaign. And the reason for why I like to mark that as a display campaign is that when I'm doing any reporting or quick checks, I can actually see in the naming convention that we're dealing with a display campaign. And then we press continue. And then the next step is that we actually go through and select the locations that we want to target. Obviously, whether you want all countries and territories, that's going to be a worldwide campaign, or you can select the individual country which you're currently located in. But if you wanted to enter in other locations, you can actually select this third option, and this allows you to enter in multiple countries. And I've already gone through and added in 3 countries, but remembering you don't have to do this by country. You can either break it down to a city or a region, or even a state, or even a post or a zip code. We can then skip over this languages section. With my recommendation is only running it in one language, and for this example, we're going to be using the language of English. Now, before you go through and click next, you can actually see this more settings. Now, this is actually ones where it does let you know whether you wanted to change your ad schedule, but for this example, we're happy to run our ads on every single day. We're also happy to run our ads across all devices, but if you only wanted to show your ads on mobile phones, you could limit it here. And probably the only other thing that you want to be looking at is looking at your start and end dates. So if you are wanting to set up your campaign now, but you didn't want it to start for another 7 days, this is where you'd go through and click on that pencil icon and change the date to your preferred start date. Once we're happy with those settings, we then go through and click next. And this is where we go through and add in our budget. Now you do have to remember that Google Ads works on a daily budget. So if we wanted to spend $300 a month, we would actually put in the daily budget of $10. And then because we do have conversions set up in this account, we can actually automatically target on conversions. So I'm happy with that conversion setting there. And then we go through and click next. Now with the Google Ads display campaign, when it comes to targeting, is that this is when we go about and actually start adding in the audiences that we want to target. And this is one of those core differences between your Google Ads search campaigns and your Google Ads display campaigns, in that in your Google Ads search campaigns, this is the section which we would go through and add in your keywords. But for display campaigns, we're going in and adding those individual audiences and demographics that we want to target. Now, the way that the Google Ads step-by-step process works for setting up a Google Ads display campaign, it only really has the scope for you to set up one individual ad group when you're going through the setup process. So at the start, we're just going to set up our retargeting and our remarketing ad group. And then after we've finished setting up the campaign, I'll go through and show you how you can actually go through and add in those extra ad groups to target those affinity audiences and those similar audiences. So let's go through and add our targeting, and we're going to be doing this by our audiences. And because we're starting off with the remarketing list, you want to go into this browse section and then go into how have they interacted with your business. And we want to go into the website visitors, and we're going to be adding in all of these available lists from here. And then we want to go through and click next. And now we've come to this time where we're going to be going through and adding in our ads. So what you want to do is you want to click on new ad. Now I'm going to be showing you how you can actually go through and set up your own responsive display ads, but Google does have an option if you want to actually upload your own image ads. And this is the process where you actually create ads externally, like in Photoshop, and then you actually upload them into your Google Ads display campaign. And what I will do in the description of this video is I'll actually put through a link to where you can see the different sizes that you need to be using to upload different display ads. But right now we want to click on add a new responsive display ad. Now I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because it is quite a simple process where you just add in your website, you then add in your business name, and then from here you get to add in some different images and some logos. Now when I've clicked on the images, because I've run some display campaigns before, you can actually see all of the different images which I have in here. But if this is your first display campaign, you have a couple of options. Firstly, you can go through and scan your website, and if you enter in your URL here, it'll actually pull out some different images from your website that you can use. Or alternatively, it will actually go through your Facebook and your Instagram so that you can scan those different images from there. Or secondly, you can actually upload some different images that you may want to use for your campaign. But for us, we're just going to use this scan website option. And once you click on an individual image, it then also allows you to do some simple cropping. So if you wanted to change the section of the image that you're using, and once you're happy with that, you then select those ratios. And for this image where we go, it doesn't look good in that section, we can remove that and just use the ratio which we're happy for our ads. And once we've got enough images that we're happy with, we just press save. Now you can add up to 15 different images, but for this example, I've just added in 3 different variations. We then want to go through and add our logo. I've already got my logos uploaded into our Google Ads account. If you don't have those, you can go through and try the scan website option or the upload option, but we've just selected those 2 logos and then we press save. You can also, if you wanted to, is add some videos. And the way that these videos are done, you can't actually upload the videos. They have to be in YouTube. And then from there, it's just a matter of going through and adding in our headlines and our descriptions. And like what we've got in Google search ads, you've got these character elements, which lets you know the character limits for your headlines and your descriptions. Now, I do recommend spending some time here, making sure that you're using really strong headlines and really strong descriptions. But because in this video, I just want to show the process of how to actually set up your display campaign, I'm not going to discuss this any further. But what I will do is I will leave a link at the end of this video so that you can actually go through and see my ad copy secrets, which shows you the process of which I use to write headlines and descriptions that are not only clicked on in Google Ads, but which also have a higher conversion rate. The only extra thing that I will say here is that remember when you're putting your ads together is to remember whether that this ad group is looking at targeting that remarketing audience, that similar audience, or that affinity audience. And in this example, because we started off with that remarketing audience, I'd be wanting to make sure that my headlines and descriptions have really strong call out, which are letting people know that it's not too late to book their villa for their next holiday in Bali. And then from there is actually an option. If you did want to see here, this more options section, you can actually add in a call to action text. So if you don't want this to be automated, you can actually pre-select from these options so that Google is forced to always use the call out which you have selected. So for example, if we use book now, this makes sure that this button here will always say book now, regardless of the individual ad which it shows on. And then the other option that I do like to use is that you can actually use this custom colors section. And this then allows you to actually add in some different branding colors. And the only 2 colors that you can change is the main color and the accent color. And then once you're happy with your ad, and you can go through this option to actually see how your ad appears on all different formats, on mobile and on desktop. And once you're happy with how all of those appear, you can then click create ad. And then from there, we want to go to next. And this is where we're just going through and checking all the elements of our campaign. Now with our ad group, we didn't name that previously. So what we can do in here, because we know this is our remarketing ad, we can actually call this ad group remarketing. And then once we've gone through and reviewed our campaign and we're happy with all the settings, we can then go through and click publish campaign. So what this has now done is this has now created our Google Ads display campaign. And when we click on that, we can see that we've only got 1 ad group. And when we're in that ad group level, this is where we can then go through and add those extra ad groups so that we can go through and target our similar audiences and also our affinity audiences. So to do this process, we just click on this blue plus sign, making sure that we're in the ad group section. We select the campaign we want, and then we can go through there here, and we'll go through and set up our similar audience. Then we want to go through and add our targeting, once again going into our audiences. And for the similar audiences, you want to go through this browse section again and looking at how they've interacted with your audiences. And then we're looking at the similar segments. And where we've seen these similar segments, we just click the ones that we want to click. We will then go through and add in our extra ad copy. Now, once again, we may want to change the ad copy for this ad group, given that it's going to a different audience. And then once we're happy with that, we press create ad group. And you can see now that we've got our remarketing ad group and a similar ad group. And then to create that 3rd ad group, we just press this plus sign once more, making sure we're putting it in the right campaign. And then this one is going to be our affinity targeting. Then we just add in our targeting, once again going to the audience segments. Now for this campaign, because we're dealing with a villa resort in Bali, we'd be looking at targeting things like hotels and accommodations, vacation rentals, travel. And then what we can even do in here is we can do a quick search to actually go through and type some of our product keywords to see if there's audiences already in Google. So for us, this villa resort is located in Bali. So if we were to type in Bali, you can actually see here, Google has some in-market segments in and around Bali, and then we can go through and add any of these in. And once we're happy with that, we can click done. But for example, if you're running a health and fitness product site, specifically targeting weightlifters, you could type in weightlifting and actually see the different audience segments that come in through here, and then select the ones which you think you would like to test for your affinity targeting. And then once again, we just need to go through and create another ad for that ad group. And then once we're happy with that ad, we can press create ad group. And then from there, you can see that in our one Google Ads display campaign, we've actually got 3 individual ad groups, which are all targeting different audience segments. So we've got our affinity targeting ad group, our remarketing targeting ad group, and our similar targeting ad group. But as I said, the key point we'd want here is that we'd want to be making sure that each of these individual ad groups had individual ad copy and also individual images that even particularly went to different landing pages depending on if they were someone who was familiar with your brand or someone who was familiar with their product but just hadn't heard of your brand or your service before. So that is my step-by-step process and how you go about correctly setting up a Google Ads display campaign. And as promised, if you go through and follow the link in the description below, you can actually go through and get my free Google Ads display campaign setup guide so that you can follow that step-by-step process in a slower and easier fashion. And that campaign setup guide also includes my campaign structure, which you should be using for your Google display campaign. And throughout that teaching, you would have seen that I made some notes about how you can go through and set up your very own conversion actions in Google Ads. And if you want to learn more about that, I want you to go through and watch this video right here. Or if you'd like to learn more about my ad copy secrets, where I share the secrets of not only how to get your ads to be clicked on, but how to actually increase your conversion rates, I want you to go through and watch this video right here. Once again, it's been my pleasure teaching you, and I look forward to seeing you on our next video. See you later.